After hours, no alibi. I keep a bell on the record shop door because I like the way it tattles. All day it tells me who's wandering in to buy a memory. High school kids taking pictures by the cassette wall, men who grew out of bands but not guitars, couples hunting a soundtrack they can agree on. On Thursdays I close at 8, sweep the confetti of paper sleeves, and flip the sign to closed with a small, satisfying click. That night the bell rang at 8:03 anyway. It wasn't a customer. A courier in a navy cap stood there with an envelope and a look that said he had other places to be. "After hours drop," he said, then checked my name twice. The envelope was heavy cream stock, knotted with a thin ribbon like the kind you see on hotel chocolates. My name, Noah, was written in a quick, controlled hand I didn't recognize. Inside was a key, a brass tag stamped 418, and a note. The Orpheum, 8:30, no calls. Beneath that, a single initial, A. The Orpheum used to be a theater, then a hotel, then both, rooms wrapped around a stage like a secret audience. My wife, Layla, and I once watched an indie band there that sounded like rain deciding whether to fall. We said we'd go back for the rooms. We never did. I told myself this was some mix-up. I sell to DJs named Apollo and Alba, kids with single-letter brands. But the key had weight, the way certain truths do. It sat in my hand like it knew my pulse. I swept my shop without looking where the broom went. At 8:22, I turned the sign back to open long enough to tip it to private instead, a setting I'd never used. The Orpheum knows how to dress its hallways. Velvet on the banisters, mirror glass that makes you look like you belong there. I climbed the stairs, my heart getting stupid at each landing. Outside 418, a tray with 2 highball glasses waited, polite as a butler. The door was ajar. The gap insisted on being a question. I didn't push it wider. I've watched enough life to know that answers don't always need witnesses. But something soft had snagged on the hinge, a pale blue scarf with silver threads. It was Leela's. I bought it for her our first winter when she kept stealing my coat and walking home inside it. My hand knew the weave before my eyes did. The brass key went hot. "You're early," a voice said behind me, unstartled. I turned. She was in her 30s, my age, hair pinned loosely as if it had been set for the day and then argued with the evening. Her coat was gray and expensive in the way that says, picked carefully on sale. She had the kind of face that keeps secrets and the kind of gaze that doesn't want to anymore. She looked at the scarf, then at me, and there it was, the flicker of recognition when two strangers discover they're reading the same book. I said, because letters were safer than names. "Ava," she answered, "you're Noah." "How do you know that?" "I'm very, very tired of not knowing things," she said. "I sent the key." I waited for anger, a scene, a whisper yell that would pull the hallway into a war. Ava only reached toward the scarf, touching it with the care you give a piece of paper someone else wrote on. "I didn't know if you would come," she said. "I wasn't sure if I wanted you to." "You could have called." "I don't want to be a stranger's midnight voice," she said simply. "And this place is real." "I'm married," I said. It felt both ridiculous and necessary. "So am I," she answered, and she drew a small breath around the word like it scraped going down. "To Evan." I knew the name. He'd come into my shop once looking for a first pressing, all lean jokes and a watch that wanted attention. He's one of those men who thinks a room is a mirror. "We're not friends," I said. She gave a small, dry laugh. "Neither are we," she said, meaning her and Evan. "Not lately." We didn't push the door. The hallway hummed with the muffled sound of a television left on in another life. It would have been easy, too easy, to go looking and make our grief photogenic. Ava didn't flinch in that direction. I needed you to have a choice, she said. To see or not, to stay or not. I'm not here to choreograph your pain. I already saw, I said, fingers tightening on the scarf. Or enough of it, this is hers. Ava nodded once, a tiny verdict. Then we can leave, she said. Or we can sit downstairs and figure out how to talk like adults while other people pretend they're the only ones in the world. We went downstairs. The Orpheum's lounge puts fireplaces where they aren't needed. We sat where we could see people arrive and forget their voices. I set the scarf on the table and stared at the glass's circle of condensation. Ava ordered tea. I said seltzer because I was trying to be good, the way a person tries not to scratch an itch in church. Why now? I asked finally. Because Thursday is his night, she said. Client dinners. And because I found a message on his tablet that started with room 418 and ended with no calls. I copied it, wrote your name on an envelope, and spent the afternoon listening to my heartbeat inside a clock. You don't owe me this, I said. I don't, she agreed. But if we're going to hurt, we deserve the truth to be less of a scavenger hunt. I remembered the last 2 months like you remember a bad edit. The late Pilates classes, the new perfume she said a client left at the studio, and that she didn't mind wearing for a while. The way her phone started sleeping face down. The way her laugh sounded rehearsed when I asked about her day. Ava watched me watch myself. He thinks he's a magician, she murmured, not bitter, just factual. He's good at misdirection. I spent a year applauding. What do you want? I asked. I want to sleep with my eyes closed, she said. And I want you to stop feeling crazy for being awake. We sat with that until the fireplace pretended to crackle. A couple across from us started kissing in the careful way of people who want to be seen but not identified. I felt anger then, a flare of it that could have lit a city block. Not at the couple, not even at Leela alone. At the way people can stake a claim on each other and then abandon the ground without telling the other person to pack. I don't want a scene, I said. I want a clean exit. Clean is relative, Ava said gently. But yes, exit. We didn't run upstairs. We didn't knock at 418 like process servers for the heart. We made a plan with fewer nouns and more verbs. Talk, separate, dismantle. It sounds cold, but it was the only warm thing left to do. When we stood to go, Ava touched the scarf again. Do you want? I'll mail it, I said, with the rest. We swapped numbers not like accomplices, but like witnesses who know they might need to send each other transcripts. Then we left by different doors. I stayed married for 8 more days. In that week, Leela was everything she's good at being, attentive, soft-voiced, practical with compliments. I asked her to sit with me at our kitchen table. The window let in dusk like a kindness. I think you want something I don't know how to give, I said. I didn't mention keys or rooms or scarf threads. I spoke. She listened. She did the thing I always used to love, took 3 breaths before she answered. I don't want to blow up our life, she said, eyes on her hands. I wanted to feel not like someone's default. You were never a default, I said. I know. It's not rational. But sometimes I watch you in the shop and you're alive in there in a way that makes our couch look like a waiting room. The truth is rude when it's accurate. Then we should stop pretending the waiting room is a home, I said. She nodded. We cried separately under the same ceiling. We split our furniture like countries dividing maps. She took the lemon squeezer and I let it go because knives felt symbolic. She moved into a place with stairwells that smelled like other people's dinners. We promised not to turn each other into villains when the story got told. We kept that promise. The night after she left, I closed the shop early and sat on a milk crate behind the counter, counting breath and receipts. The bell tattled again at 7:02. Ava stood there in a navy sweater and the kind of jeans that probably had a better name in the catalog. She held a paper bag. "Peace offering," she said. "Pastries. Sugar is diplomacy." I unlocked the door. The record player on the counter hummed as if it were about to suggest something. We ate almond croissants over a stack of returns. "Thank you for not setting anything on fire," Ava said. It took me a second to realize she meant hearts, not buildings. "You too," I said. "How are you?" "Very organized," she said. "There are lists everywhere at my place. If I'm busy labeling, I'm not thinking about the real labels." "Like what?" I asked. "Like I'm a person who missed a red flag because it matched the room," she shrugged. "My mother says heartbreak is a fever. It breaks when it wants to." We didn't flirt. We compared damage gently. She told me she'd packed Evan's suits into garment bags that made them look like men in line for absolution. I told her I found Leela's earrings under the couch and put them in a tea tin labeled sugar, because somehow that felt right. When Ava laughed, it wasn't relief, but it was oxygen. The days tipped. I went to the shop earlier, not because I needed to, but because morning light on vinyl makes the whole world look deliberate. Sometimes I'd find a single freesia on the counter with a note that said, "For the register's patience," in a hand I now knew. Ava owned a design studio that built identities for small businesses. She liked my logo but hated my hours. "You should say open late when the weather wants it," she texted once. I changed the sign to read exactly that. We saw each other without planning to, at the coffee place that gives you too much ice, on the corner where the bus remembers to come early if you're late. Then, one Sunday, we stood beside each other at the city's flea market, pretending to consider a lamp shaped like a trumpet. "My place is around the corner," she said. "I have normal tea and strange tea." "Strange," I said, "because my mouth gets brave when my brain wants to run." Her apartment was airy in the careful way people earn. Books stacked horizontally, plants that looked like they belonged to someone with conversations in them. The table held a vase with half a dozen clementines, just the fruit, no leaves, sun in a glass cylinder. She set the kettle on the stove and took off her sweater, revealing a simple black shirt that had nothing to do with anyone's approval. The window was open enough to invite the city up without letting it inside. We drank tea that tasted like mint had read a philosophy book. We talked about nothing urgent and everything important. I told her about the first record my father gave me, the way I listened with my ear against the speaker like I could fall in. She told me about choosing colors for other people's dreams and then going home to walls that looked like sleep. We didn't mention spouses. We didn't need to. The absence sat in a chair with us, polite and unhungry. At some point, without ceremony, we stepped closer to look at a photograph on her wall, a black and white of a woman's hands tying an apron. I could smell her shampoo, the clean kind that refuses to argue. When she turned toward me, I met her eyes, and we both paused as if we were listening for instructions we didn't intend to obey. "May I asked, because the question had value. "You may," she said, and the edges of her mouth lifted in a way that made the room stand up straighter. The kiss was unhurried. No crash, no music, just a tilt toward the thing we'd both been carrying like a book we hadn't dared open. Her fingers found my collar and rested there, warm through cotton, an anchor not a claim. My hand learned the line of her spine the way dawn learns houses, quietly, with respect. We didn't narrate it. We let it be what it was, two people telling the truth with their mouths finally in the right place. When we parted, our foreheads stayed close. "I don't want to be anybody's revenge," she said. It was a vow, not a warning. "Me neither," I said. We smiled at the same thought. How ridiculous, how lucky, how adult we'd managed to be. We didn't run off to the clever place where heartbreak goes to play dress-up. We made dinner. Pasta and tomatoes and basil bruised between fingertips, the ordinary liturgy of a kitchen where no one lies. After that, we learned each other's timing. Touch like a question, laughter like punctuation, the heat arriving when it wanted to, never as proof, always as permission. We were careful the way you're careful with something valuable that isn't fragile anymore. When the room went dim, we let it. When the room went bright, we didn't hide. What we didn't do mattered as much as what we did. We never used kisses to erase. We used them to write in the margins. There were echoes, of course. A grocery list in Leela's handwriting turned up behind the toaster. Evan tried once to apologize to Ava via email with the subject closure, and a body that read like a press release. She archived it without opening. She brought clementines to my shop and left them at the register with a sticky note that said simply, "Vitamin C is stubborn." Months later, a couple came into my store and asked for something to play during the first dance at their wedding. He was nervous and she liked his nervous. I recommended a track that starts slow, then remembers it has a heart. When they left, the bell tattled, soft and pleased. I texted Ava to meet me after I closed. "After hours," I wrote. "No alibi, just you." She arrived in a navy dress and sneakers, her hair an argument it was winning. We sat on the counter, legs swinging like kids bored with perfection. I poured us sparkling water into mismatched glasses and turned the lights low until the shop felt conspiratorial and innocent all at once. She touched the old knob on the sign by the door. "You really use this?" she asked, smiling. "Now I do," I said, and I flicked it from open to private, the tiny click loud in the evening. We kissed with the door locked and the city humming outside, safe, deliberate, not a secret and never again a mistake. In the window, our reflections looked like two people who had finally stopped applauding for the wrong show. We didn't need room 418. We had the place where you lean across a counter and tell the truth, where silver threads from an old scarf catch the light and make a new pattern, where the only vow is the one you keep on purpose. The sign stayed turned, and for once, the door and the story matched.